This will be a challenge, guys. We now have an English session. I'm more than happy to talk with you. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Thiago. This is Diego. But I would love for you to introduce yourself for Brazilians and the Brazilian market, please. Feel safe. That camera is all over you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nyambogo Jennifer.
Nyambogo Jennifer. Yeah.
Yes, I'm the CEO and co-founder at Mau Africa. So Mau is a platform that connects global buyers like yourself here in Sao Paulo with very talented African craftspeople on the African continent. So I'm super excited to be here, not only to represent Kenya, where I come from, but also Africa in large, and also offer some insights around e-commerce marketplaces in Africa and some of the things you guys in Brazil need to consider if you want to do business in Africa.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here with us. And how can I pronounce your name? I'm sorry. It's
Nyambogo.
What do you prefer, Nyambogo or Jennifer?
Actually, I do prefer Nyambogo.
Okay.
So just
Nyambogo
some
it is.
context, in my language, I come from a tribe in Kenya called Kikuyu. So Nyambogo means buffalo.
Oh,
So
strong,
buffalo.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in African culture, you get named after something that represents you. So if you are born during rainy periods, your name is associated with rain. For me, I was born during a period where buffaloes were growing in Africa, so I'm named after a buffalo. Yes.
Oh, that's really cool. So let's keep Nyambogo, right?
Yes.
If I spell anything wrong, you can correct me at any time. Would be more than a pleasure to learn better how to pronounce different names, different for us, of course. But Nyambogo, tell us what is. I'm going to start with the thing that is. I think it's the higher contrast that we have when we have somebody from outside of the country, and to bring new experiences, new content, and also to share. What do you think about what you get to see here in Brazil so far? Also about culture, but also about the market, what you get to see here in the forum, and please share with us the things that probably we are not seeing.
Okay, perfect. I think I'll start with the culture shock that I got when I got here.
Yeah.
Normally, when you're in Africa and people are talking about the developing world, they categorize Africa, India, Latin America together.
Yeah.
But now that I've been here, Brazil is way more industrialized than Kenya, where I come from.
Got it.
So it's quite impressive to just come see the infrastructure, the people, learn the culture. Unfortunately, I don't speak Portuguese. I come from a part of Africa where we are English speakers.
Yeah.
However, there are some Portuguese speakers in Africa. If you look at countries like Mozambique,
Yeah.
Angola, but it's been quite an honor for me to be here, and also to see marketplaces in Brazil that are way ahead compared to Africa. I feel like the marketplaces in Africa are just now starting to develop.
Okay.
So it's been so interesting to be in this market and see how far you guys have been able to leverage marketplace technologies to transform your industries, and also to try to borrow the same in Africa and see what are some of the things that we can learn. And then what are some of the other things in Africa that we're doing that are very innovative that we can also offer the Brazilian market?
That's awesome. I would love to hear that. I mean, what do you guys have that you saw here and say, okay, you're ahead, but you don't have this that we have? Please share with us.
I think the biggest one is payments.
Yeah.
So I happen to be a foodie, so I've just been going around restaurants and trying to eat and try different Portuguese or Brazilian cuisine.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've noticed is your modes of payment. As a traveler here, I've been forced to either use card or if I had withdrawn some cash earlier before.
Exactly.
Yeah, in Africa, we have something very innovative that's called mobile banking.
Yeah.
So mobile banking moves away from the traditional forms of banking where you don't need to even have a bank account. You just need to have a 2G connection and a SIM card on your phone.
Okay.
And you can be able to transfer money between me and you, but most importantly, users can also be able to use the same to pay businesses. So it's very easy. You can, in Kenya, where I come from, which is the motherland of mobile banking, you can just as easily as tap your phone at a cashier and you're able to pay, or use what we call a till number to pay a business. So I think that's something the Brazilian market will benefit from, mobile banking, because it makes banking and movement of finance very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have something here, but I don't think it's the same. I mean, you can pay like this, you know. You just, but I have to double tap and do some. So what you said is like something is a specific app or is already on your phone that you just how what is the gesture that you do to make the payment?
Okay, so the first thing I'll ask you for that payment method, is it connected to your bank?
Okay.
Is it connected
Yeah,
to your
yeah,
bank?
yeah. It is.
Oh, yes. So that's the difference with Africa. You don't need to have a bank account.
Ah, okay.
So it works mainly on a 2G network. As long
Okay.
as you have a SIM card.
2G.
Exactly.
Oh.
So today, a few days ago, I bought a SIM card from Claro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you just have a Claro SIM card, you don't need to have a bank account. You can actually send and receive money from your SIM card. So that's how
Okay.
mobile banking works.
And then when you're going to pay your next phone bill, it will charge for that like some that's how do you actually pay for that? You have the account. I mean, pay for Claro.
Yeah.
If I well understood, I'm trying to understand. Huh? And then you pay for it. Then on your next invoice, the charge of this amount you spend will come, or it's instantaneous.
So it's a bit different. We don't have the luxury of waiting for the end of the month for an invoice because Africa happens to be a very cash intensive society.
Okay.
So what happens with mobile banking is you go with physical cash to a mobile banking store and then you give them the cash. They tokenize this cash as money on your SIM card. And then you use that token to transfer.
Okay.
So you can actually use the same token to withdraw money, to send money to a business, to send money to someone else. So you don't need a physical bank. You don't need to wait for the rest of at the end of the month for you to be invoiced. You just need to have cash, take it to a store, get the token, and then with that token you're able to make transfers.
Damn, that's really cool.
It's quite
'Cause-
interesting.
So it's like a prepaid gateway of payments that okay, now I got it. That's really amazing because here we could do that.
Yeah.
And you could like connect with our accounts. I mean, if you don't have any cash, but you have some extra credits on your account. No, that's really good. And you said 2G. That kind of
2G
impressed
network,
me.
yeah, 2G
So
network.
3G and 4G over there.
Oh yeah, still works. Yeah,
Okay.
we also have 5G, so all the rest works. But the basic thing is anyone with a 2G network going upwards can actually be able to access the service. And I think maybe something else to mention, unlike Brazil and most of the world, 90% of the African population is either unbanked or underbanked. So not so many people have access to traditional banks like you do here.
Okay.
So that's why the innovation of mobile banking is so important in Africa because it helps people who will not traditionally have a bank account access financial institutions or be able to access digital payments in a way that was otherwise very impossible to do.
Damn, this is amazing because I think you guys are ahead. It is also from the inclusion part because here, if you are like far away from São Paulo, and probably you don't have even 4G, you have 3G, and the majority of the websites will take a ton of time to load. You know, because we're kind of not prepared for this for this kind of need. And oh, this is amazing. And on your e-commerce, people can also pay in this way. What are the payment methods you accept on e-commerce from people from Africa?
So
The
yeah.
same.
Our marketplace serves both the African continent, but what is very important is we try to make that connection between global buyers, like if you're in Sao Paulo, and African producers. So for African consumers, our biggest mode of payment is, of course, mobile money because it's very popular. But when it comes to dealing with consumers outside the African continent, we do allow card payments, whether through debit or credit,
Okay.
or other online payments platforms like PayPal.
Okay, got it. So, but the majority of your customers are from Africa or from outside?
So majority of our customers are from outside.
Some.
Yeah, from outside because when you're in Africa and how the craft space operates in the space where I operate, there are already open air markets in Africa where you can actually go and access the crafts. The biggest problem that we are trying to tackle is, for example, for international buyers, and you're outside the continent of Africa and you really want to purchase something from a creative producer, how do you go around it? So what we're trying to do is provide that linkage between this traditional creative business in Africa and the rest of the world, and to ensure that it doesn't get lost. So how do we include them in the global commerce stage so that that heritage and that craft making skill is not only lost in Africa? And I think, let me just mention this. we notice international customers actually prefer to buy African crafts more than Africans.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the African context, and please, Africans don't come for me after, there's this nature to want to be more westernized.
Yeah.
So Africans try to run away from their heritage and they want to be more westernized. But we've noticed non-Africans are very interested in buying cultural goods from the continent.
You know, we do have it in common in Brazil. We value so much. When you go outside of Brazil, people talk about a lot about samba and things that a lot of people in Brazil kind of don't like. You know, they say and don't even respect. And yeah, Brazilians, please take it easy on me. But it's something that we were talking with Monica a few moments ago,
Yeah.
and we were discussing that on how we are used to say everybody else outside of Brazil they are really better, richer, smarter, and I think that's something that we do have in common. We call that the syndrome of the dog. I don't know how to say the syndrome do cachorro vira-lata. I don't know how to say that in English. Syndrome of the lean dog, let's say.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like, you know,
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, we are not good, but creativity here is awesome, and for you guys, it's the same.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we do have that in common. It's a problem that I'm really happy that you're tackling this problem, and we do have one brand here in Brazil that they were known to Havaianas. I don't know if I can say the name of the brand, but I already did.
Okay.
But they did a marketing move that I think is really awesome because Havaianas, when I was a teenager, they were like a brand used by people working in like construction, you know. So it was not something hyped. So what they did, and also I think Pinga, aquela marca de Pinga, there's a beverage brand that did the same. So they went outside and took the Brazilian culture outside, exploded. Then they got back to Brazil 3 times more expensive. You know, and say like, okay, guys, you didn't like us. I paid.
No, you pay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll pay the bill. So
Yeah.
it's something that's
Yeah, it's something similar, and I feel like for most, especially being in the world that we live, I feel like it's something common for all colored communities across the world because of colonization and all
Exactly.
that. There is an aspiration to be more white or to aspire to your colonizer, but I feel like we are getting to a point where people of color, especially in Africa, even Africans, are now being more comfortable in their skin, embracing their culture a bit more. We have this thing in Kenya where people make fun of you if you don't speak good English, and you're like, English is like your fourth language, so it doesn't have to be the best.
Yeah.
But I feel like now we are building a culture where Black people are very comfortable in their own identity
that's awesome.
and want to like show out and share that identity with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Here in Brazil, we have a movement of the young persons that like funk style. It's not the funk that the American funk. It's like a Brazilian funk, and it's really popular. And what we are seeing from the last years is that on the televisions they didn't see themselves, you know, or people that resemble their style. They all of they could see is like white blonde people in fancy brands and stuff like that, and they didn't feel represented. And now with thanks to the social media, they are getting to a point where they feel proud of where they came from, and they're not ashamed. I say they, but I'm kind of included on that. So they are starting to have like the biggest podcast in Brazil. It's 2 guys that are from this culture, and they are really proud of them, and they make like they love to bring people that resemble their culture and to say, this is cool, you get to be what you are, the way you look is not a problem, it's actually your advantage, because you get to be yourself. You need to be yourself. You don't need to have a type of hair or whatever to be accepted. And I think that's something that's similar also in our cultures, because I mean, the majority of the people we're talking about, blondes and white, they are not full Brazilians. I mean, we are mixed of origins, right? So So I think also that's another thing that we do have in common. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's amazing to just see that whole. It's actually like a global movement
Yeah.
now where people of color are now taking up space and being comfortable with where they come from. And I feel like that diversity and that authenticity adds to the values that we have as human beings,
Yeah.
and also adds to like what we can do, the potential of the human race to move forward. And I think that acceptance and inclusion of different peoples of color will take us as human beings to the next level. Because I keep saying this to my friends. It's quite sad that we are the same race, all of us, like we are humans.
Yeah.
Basically, we're the same species, different
Species, yeah.
races, but the same species. But to see the infighting between humans is really sad. I'm sure if an alien came to the planet of Earth, they'll be like, "What is wrong with these human beings?
Yeah.
And why is it like a black human being is treated from a lighter human being? It does not make sense." So hopefully, it's a time where the rest of the world, and especially people of color, are able to come out and stand up for themselves, but also for the rest of the world to be more inclusive and allow that diversity, because
Exactly.
that diversity is what makes us amazing and rich as human beings and drives innovation.
That's
Yeah.
amazing speech. I really love that. I do have a question about, because we're talking, lots of people in this forum, they are talking about distribution, right?
Yeah.
And logistics. It's not something that I'm expert. I'm not an expert of that part, but I wanna ask you the complexity of your logistics, like shipping and stuff like that, because the most part of your customers are abroad, in a time that fast shipping is seen at least as a key value for a company. How do you work that? How do you take on that?
Just the one thing to mention about our platform. So our platform deals with very authentic cultural items or creative manufacturing products done on the African continent. So one of the factors around that, it's slow fashion. So you don't expect, it's not mass produced. So you don't expect something will be available in stock and shipped to you directly. So we give that disclaimer to customers. If you make an order, expect 5 to 10 days before we're able to fulfill. Because in some cases, you have to customize, because we have a customization feature, so the customer can go until the artisan will love for you to introduce this or add this in my product. So that's something that we are very keen to communicate to our customers. And then the other thing, we've partnered with global logistics companies like
Okay.
DHL, FedEx, UPS, that make it easy for us to do doorstep shipping to any part of the world.
Nice.
So that's one of the things that we're doing. But key to just make sure that what differentiates us is that conscious production. And we also want to work with consumers that are also conscious about that. So if you want something that is rich in cultural heritage, that is beautiful, we're not Amazon. Don't expect it within 48 hours or 12 hours. But within 5 days, we'll deliver to you and it will be a quality product.
That's awesome. That's really good. We spoke here with Leticia Vaz from a company that she has she doesn't have like stock, storage. She doesn't store products, and she sells what she produces what she sold, and she's like doing things in 1 day, 2 days, and she's like choosing her mix of products based on the time she will take to produce these products, so she can ship fast. And I think it's really amazing the position and the postures of saying, if you expect to receive tomorrow, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
You should respect the process of creating, because our culture is not to be expedited like in 2 hours. So
Exactly. And I feel like that fast fashion and fast manufacturing is leading to
Disaster.
no fast company or fast manufacturer is going to come for me, but it's
They
leading
won't, they
to
won't.
some of the many issues we have now in the world around climate change,
Exactly.
a lot of pollution. So how do we
Slavery.
exactly? Yeah. So we need to go back to that basic of ethical production, slow production. Yeah, I think that matters more, and then it's more meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the big companies that are doing this model, they are trying to look like they're not. So they cannot come for you unless they should call you and say, please teach us. How do you do that? How you get to sell, how you get to do things in a way that you're not like harming the world, and
Yes.
and bringing the culture, that's the most important thing of a nation, abroad. So cool. Now, do you want to ask something?
No question.
No question?
No
Okay.
question.
But what I would love to understand now, what did you find interesting about what you see here in the marketplaces? What things that you think that you'll be able to go back and say, tomorrow I'm gonna do this, this, and that?
Um, so it's a couple of things. The first one I will say is how your logistics work here.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a bit different in Africa because we don't have as our infrastructure is still under development, so road infrastructure does not get to places way outside town. But one of the things I was even speaking to like some Brazilian stakeholders is how do we innovate around that, because we can't be in government and be like build all the road infrastructure. But I've been hearing interesting stories here about drone technology and using
Yeah.
drone technology
Yeah.
to do deliveries. So how can we also employ the same in Africa to just push last mile logistics in places where infrastructure is not possible, but you can use drone technology to actually reach to those places. So I think that has been quite interesting for me to learn. The other thing has been around how your marketplaces are organized. I didn't realize how huge marketplaces are in Brazil. And one of the things that I'm curious about is how have you guys created a culture of trust? Because one of the biggest challenges we have in Africa, and especially around building e-commerce marketplaces, and even looking at Mau, because our primary customers are international buyers and not African buyers, is how do we build trust for consumers to want to buy online? And one of the things I've learned from stakeholders here is that you guys have very strong consumer protection rights.
Yeah.
So in Africa, e-commerce or marketplaces are just now coming up. So we have very fragile rules and regulations that govern e-commerce. So just drawing from Brazil, so how can we create robust legal structures that protect consumers,
Yeah.
but also regulate how e-commerce is done on the continent?
That's really, I think the at least what they are saying a lot right now is you gotta care for people, you know. So because in Brazil, I think you do have the same in Africa, is that, and the same happened in India and I think in China as well. It's really difficult for European and American companies to dominate because they are trying to ship their model, you know,
Yeah, true.
and say, okay, you customers adapt. We're doing our thing, and you guys do your thing, but adapt to our model. And the local companies like Magazine Luiza, or that's called Magalu, is the second time that I say Magazine Luiza. It's like old name. Don't use that.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No magazine.
It's Magalu, and they are huge, and they are diverse. They are really trying to move the country to a better place while they are selling products, because it is what it is. But they like stopped, no, didn't stop, but they didn't curve to Amazon, for example.
Oh,
So
okay.
they were known as the company to beat Amazon here. Also Mercado Livre.
Oh yeah, I've heard of
You,
them.
you heard of them, yeah. So they are huge, and I think the way that they could do to avoid that is like actually is what China made also in the past 30 years, saying like, okay, you can come here, but you don't know our people.
Oh yeah.
You don't know their streets here, you know. So while they are like struggling to deliver, we know how this works because we were born here. So I think it's the know your field thing, you know.
Yes, true.
So and trying to do the best for the people actually and take care of them. And I think that's the, at least I think I do not have a big huge company to answer, but I do think that the secret sauce is like knowing your place, your
True.
you know. And they can try to go. I don't know, in Africa I think they are already working, Amazon and the likes.
Yeah, Amazon has, okay, under the Souk company, but I feel like what you're saying, it's the same application in Africa. A lot of international brands try to replicate their models in the African context without actually understanding how the market operates.
Yeah.
But we actually seen in Africa that companies that are actually born of Africa, who understand the people, especially like in Africa, we have a huge e-commerce platform that operates like Amazon called Jumia.
Jumia, yeah, I heard of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
And why Jumia is doing so well, Jumia is a Nigerian company, and why they're doing so well is because they're building for the African market. So they're not trying to export a model from the US
Yeah.
or from China and bring it to Africa, but they actually do understand the market and are trying to build for that market.
Awesome. That's I think that's the secret, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise tech for us, and I think for you guys the same, is more expensive. The knowledge comes from outside.
Yeah.
The platforms and charging in dollar is like here we have taxes and it's way expensive. So to hire a tool to make our e-commerce better, probably it will be in dollar. So what they are doing here and and I think it's kind of what China did. I mean they started copying what the companies were doing in Europe and United States,
Yeah.
and adapting the model in a way that these companies would never do.
Yes.
And look what's happening in the world right now. So I think, and people are saying that Africa, Brazil, India, and we might be the next.
Frontier of technology.
You
Yeah,
know?
true.
Because we if we our government understand how to invest in a good way in education,
Yeah.
nobody can stop us, right? Because we are more people. Like,
True. Like also the population of Africa is quite large. We have the youngest population in the world. So very young people. There's so many young people in Africa. But the most amazing things is these young people are very tech savvy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
everyone does everything online, buying event tickets, ordering food, meeting and making connections online. So I think there's a huge opportunity not only for Africa, but emerging markets who have a very young tech savvy generation to transform how e-commerce, how digital transformation moves forward in the rest of the world. So it's quite interesting to watch the space of emerging markets. So
We're together on
Brazil,
that.
Africa, and India. So it's exciting to see.
I thinking, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
you guys have like Cape Town is the thinking on tech is a great pole of technology. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so this is my chance to brag.
Please do.
I
Yeah.
come from Kenya and I live in a city called Nairobi.
Nairobi.
So Nairobi is considered the Silicon Savannah of Africa. So it's
Okay. Thank you
basically
for that.
Silicon Valley, but in Africa. So if you want to do any tech innovation,
It's
you
there.
need to come to Nairobi. Yeah. So South Africa is good, yeah. Please, no one from South Africa come for me. But if you want to do tech, any digitization, any fintech innovation, come to Nairobi. Nairobi
Nairobi?
is the Silicon Savannah of Africa.
Love you already.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice. And I mean, what do you think? Because now we have artificial intelligence like coming with all strength. That's not going to stop. We are kind of alarmed about what it can do to society and to the countries that are more poor, like our countries. And what's left for us between huge quotes is like we should build on top of the platforms that are already there. So how do you see artificial intelligence for your business, for your company, and also for your country?
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see the developments in AI. I feel like when ChatGPT was launched, everyone in Kenya went crazy because now, especially students were like, "Oh, I can do my assignments and get the AI AI to do it for me." But I feel like in any other part of the world, AI, if smartly used, will help us optimize and become more efficient. The only issue is how do you regulate, especially in a market where, especially in Africa, where still we are behind when it comes to regulations around tech, e-commerce,
Same.
and now there's this new introduction of AI.
Yeah.
As much as it's making things easier, automation easier, how do we regulate in a way that also doesn't affect us as people or doesn't take away from our industry? So it's still, I feel like AI is still a gray area everywhere. A few years ago, when people were talking about AI, there were a lot of suspicion around AI, and then there's a hiatus for a while, and then last year and this year, it's been like the hugest talk around AI development. I'm curious to see how it unfolds in the rest of the world because, again, Africa is looking at the rest of the world to see how do people utilize AI in their markets, and then how can we also be able to apply the same. But I feel, again, goes back to regulation. So
Exactly.
how are we able to regulate the utilization? As much as it has a lot of vast applications in different industries in Africa, especially now that we're a developing world. So there's so many vast applications of AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think that's that there's a term it's coming up now. It's called like digital dictatorship. That's on the physical world is more. I mean, for car manufacturers, it's more difficult to create a monopoly. but in digital is like made to be. It's weird because if if you had like five big tech companies and each of them have 20% of the market, the one that has 21% will start to drag everything else because people want to be where people are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge challenge. And for regulations, I think, I don't know your government, but here what they are saying is like, we need to regulate, but we have to be sure and make sure that regulations won't block creativity,
Oh, yes.
but at the same time, that won't leave the regulation in the hand of one or two, and how we can make this more open and less centralized. Do you feel that you guys have the same issue, or
Um, Again, going back to regulations in Africa, especially around the digital economy,
Yeah.
is still something we're really struggling with. Just recently, Kenya did a report on e-commerce readiness for the Kenyan market in 2022, which is crazy because e-commerce has been happening in the world since the dot-com boom. So we are still behind.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it will take for us to come up with AI regulation on the African continent
Right.
if we already don't have regulation around e-commerce. But super hopeful that we are able to also borrow from markets like Brazil, who are very similar to us. And if Brazil is doing this to regulate AI in the country, what can we do in Kenya? What can
Yeah.
we do across Africa to borrow the same? Yeah.
Okay, we are still discussing regulation for social media and stuff like that. So we're kind of far away as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of work to do, and it's not stopping. It's going faster, and it's kind of alarming. But yeah, I would love to thank you, but I would love to ask if there was something that you like to talk about that we didn't mention, and please bring that up. That I would love to hear from you.
I think we've talked about most things. Maybe just the one thing that I can mention about Mau and why it's important for us to do the work that we're doing. Apart from the digital inclusion of traditional craft industries that will normally not be included in global commerce, which is very important for us. The other thing that is huge for us is a better global understanding of Africa. I feel
Got it.
like when people mention Africa, they either think of, oh, poverty, people are dying there, or there's wildlife in Africa, but they don't think about the innovative side of Africa. So one of the reasons why we wanted to build a global platform, not only for the African continent, but a global platform, is to try change some of those stereotypes that people have about Africa, and to look at Africa as a very innovative market that has a lot to offer. There are a lot of challenges, of course, but I feel like out of those challenges, and one of the biggest one has been around banking. We've been able to innovate and create something like mobile
Nailed
banking.
it,
What I'm
yeah.
talking about, 2G networks, on money transfer. So I feel like this is a huge opportunity, not only for me to be here representing Kenya and Africa, but also to invite the rest of the world and Brazil to actually look up to Africa as a continent to partner with, because there's also a lot of innovation happening on the continent.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yambogo, is that correct?
Yes, perfect. You nailed it. Are you from Nairobi?
I love to be. I love to be there. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Last question. Promise. I don't want to take up your time.
Yeah.
What are the source of information about the market or the tech on Nairobi that we can go to be updated and to have information? I'd love to know a blog or a website or whatever.
So if you want to learn about mobile technology in Africa, you can look at GSMA. GSMA has a lot of information around that. Mobile banking, look at M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is the OG platform,
Okay.
original platform for mobile banking in Africa. So you can also look at what Safaricom's
Okay.
M-Pesa is doing. You can also go to Mau Marketplace.
That's what I was hoping you just.
Yeah, to learn more about African crafts, and most importantly, the stories about the craft makers and the heritage that they've brought down. Because just to mention this, craft making in Africa is not taught in schools. It's passed down through generations through apprenticeship. So it's quite interesting to see, for example, what I'm wearing on my earrings. The person who made this is using an old age technique that they learned from their mother, that got transferred from their grandmother. So it's something that is passed down through family lineage. So it's quite interesting to like learn things about the Africa, especially craft making on that. Yeah.
I think you guys are ahead in this as well because
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about the products that you're selling? I mean, how because okay, your customers are from abroad,
Yes.
so that means probably they get to pay a little bit more because currency. I don't know. Here we have a huge currency difference from US. So if somebody is buying something from here, it's way cheaper. You know,
Yeah.
do you have the same? It's a problem when you're buying from abroad, but when you're selling, it's great, right? So for the margins and stuff like that. And how do you work inside? Do you have like a team of artisans doing the craft? How does it work internally for the products?
Okay, so Mau works. I'll use this example because it's the
Please.
only one I can use. Like how Amazon works.
Okay.
So independent sellers or craftspeople across the continent can just plug and play.
Okay.
So they go on the platform, create an account, upload their products, price their products, and then on the other end, buyers in the world can go on the platform and discover them.
Okay.
So that's how the platform works. So far we have producers from 4 African countries, Kenya being the main one, but we also have Uganda, Tanzania, and DRC,
Got it.
or Congo, DRC Congo. So how it works, we have right now. If you go to mauafrica.com, if you're in Sao Paulo, you'll actually be able to shop in Portuguese, pay in Brazilian real, yeah, and we actually ship here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
I love
much.
Brazil. I may not come back to Kenya. I'm sorry, Kenyans, but yeah.
Especially this cold. So
Yeah, it's so cold, and I love the food here. Like the food is so similar to what we have.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's really nice.